Chapter 016 Nightmare. Harlan awoke the next morning feeling completely refreshed, the exhaustion of his escape gone. "Brother Harlan, you're awake," Hugh greeted him with a smile. Limbering up near the tent entrance, this family was truly hospitable, offering him food and shelter. Though reluctant to leave such kindness, Harlan knew he had to move on and expressed his intention to depart. "Thank you for your generosity. I cannot impose any longer, but if the opportunity arises, I will repay your kindness." Anne approached, carrying a small bundle, and chuckled. "I've made some flatbread for your journey." Warmth spread through Harlan's chest. He accepted the package, the heat of the flatbread seeping through the cloth into his palms. A smile touched his lips, and remembering Anne's blindness, he spoke sincerely. "I slept soundly last night. Thank you for your hospitality." Anne chuckled softly. No need for thanks. All within the 4 Seas are brothers," Hugh declared heartily. Harlan packed his belongings, strapping on his backpack and the animal hide bundle. He suddenly noticed the leaves covering the bundle were gone, his face clouding over. "Someone has been through my pack," Hugh started. "Surely not, Anne and I haven't." "Wait a minute, Flynn, you get out here now." Flynn, who had been eavesdropping behind the tent, flinched and shuffled out, looking sheepish. Harlan's eyes glinted with amusement, a wry smile playing on his lips. "You again." Flynn cowered, avoiding Harlan's gaze. Hugh kicked him in the backside, frustration evident. "Did you steal something from our guest?" "Give it back now." Flynn bit his lip, reluctantly producing a Type 73 Wasp pistol from his pocket, handing it to Harlan. "Brother Harlan, feel free to rough him up." "The boy needs a lesson," Hugh said, already contemplating the best way to discipline his nephew. "No need, just returning it is enough. This thing is dangerous for you to keep." Harlan retrieved the pistol, relief washing over him. He wasn't possessive of his gear, but he worried about leaving weapons behind, potentially bringing trouble to the settlement. Hugh had offered him a night's respite, and Harlan wouldn't repay that with danger. Flynn sulked, unconvinced, thinking Harlan was stingy for hoarding so many guns without sharing. "Mountains may change course, but water always flows. Fate may bring us together again. Farewell," Harlan said formally. Hugh nodded. "Travel safely." Harlan slung his pack over his shoulder and turned to leave. Gratitude for even a drop of kindness should be repaid with a spring, if the chance arose. Harlan would certainly repay this act of unexpected hospitality. "That scary guy is finally gone," Flynn muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Then a sly grin spread across his face. Heh, good thing the guy didn't notice I swiped 2 guns." Escaping Hugh's lecture, Flynn scurried behind the tent. From a crate, he pulled out another Type 73 Wasp. Fondling it with greedy eyes, he was determined. Even if Harlan returned, guns blazing, he'd deny everything, never giving it back. Though, why was there no trigger on this one? The Wanderer's map was more like a child's doodle, but it gave Harlan his current location, which was enough. He remembered the complete map of Aquamarine. He was within the Star Dragon Republic. According to the map, 3 more days walking should bring him to the railway. From there, he could hitch a ride to a city. By midday, Harlan found a secluded spot to eat and replenish his energy. He noticed several new scratches on the animal hide bundle, torn by thorns and branches. Harlan unfolded the bundle, intending to transfer the weapons into his backpack. His movements faltered. He paused, a soft "huh" escaping his lips. "Wait. Is there a gun missing?" He counted again. It wasn't his imagination. A cold dread gripped Harlan's heart. If a gun was left behind at the settlement, it would be disastrous. Forgetting lunch, Harlan hastily repacked his things and started back the way he came, his pace quickening into a determined stride. 2 black armored vehicles screeched to a halt at the Wanderer settlement. Number 1, leading a fully armed Valkyrie squad, forced all the Wanderers into the central square. Ordering them to kneel with hands on their heads, the Wanderers recognized the seedling insignia. Panic rippled through the crowd. "Has anyone seen this man?" Number 1 tapped his wrist-mounted terminal. A holographic image flickered into existence. Harlan's photo. never seen him. A chorus of denials erupted. Seedling's methods were infamous. As long as they could plausibly deny any connection, wanderers were usually left alone. The Six Nations and Seedling were opposing factions. Wanderers were the fence-sitters, usually neutral, potentially leaning either way. Both the Six Nations and Seedling generally avoided violence against them. Only Flynn visibly trembled, guilt etched all over his face. Number 1, frustrated and angry, had tracked Harlan for 7 days, only to find a settlement where everyone claimed ignorance. He'd clearly been following the wrong trail. "Let's go," Number 1 barked, turning to climb back into the vehicle, but as he turned, he caught Flynn's expression. Suspicion pricked Number 1. He stopped, snapping, "Grab that kid," Flynn gasped, hauled out of the crowd by Valkyrie soldiers, trembling like a cornered quail. Number 1 narrowed his eyes. "You recognize the man in the photo?" Flynn shook his head vehemently. "Never seen him." Number 1 noticed a bulge at Flynn's waist. "Search him." Flynn was wrestled to the ground, helpless, as the Type 73 Wasp was pulled from his waistband. "This is our weapon." Number 1's voice turned glacial. He raised his rifle, aiming at the crowd. "Zero was clearly here, and you dared to lie. Do you all have a death wish? Speak. Where did he go?" The threat of the gun sent shivers through the wanderers. All eyes turned to Kylo, the bearded trader who had first encountered Harlan. Kylo, shrinking into the corner like an ostrich burying its head, panicked. "Why are you looking at me? I just sold him a few things. Hugh knows where he went." Those near Hugh instantly recoiled, distancing themselves. Hugh, seeing the situation unravel, slowly stood up, his voice heavy. "I don't know." Kylo, desperate to clear his name, retorted immediately, "How could you not know? You stuck up for him, even sheltered him for the night." Number 1's expression darkened further. The wanderers, terrified, urged Hugh to speak. "Just tell them what you know." "Do you want to get us all killed for a stranger?" Kylo's betrayal stung Hugh. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. He pointed in a direction, his voice low. "He went that way." "Good, you're being sensible." Number 1 sneered, and without warning fired. Bang! A crimson hole blossomed on Hugh's forehead. His face froze in a mask of shock. He swayed, then crashed to the ground, a pool of blood spreading beneath him. Flynn screamed, staring in horror at Hugh's lifeless body. Just like that. Dead, Number 1 remained impassive, as if swatting a fly. The Wanderer's deception had enraged him, and hearing Hugh had sheltered Harlan sealed his fate. Anyone with even the slightest connection to Zero deserved to die. Hugh, Anne, sensing something was terribly wrong, turned pale and unsteady. She rose shakily, feeling her way towards the sound of her husband's voice, her steps faltering, stumbling. Number 1 raised his pistol again, and from a distance, put a bullet through Anne's head. Half her skull exploded, brain matter and blood splattering across the ground. Anne collapsed halfway to her husband, an arm's length away, yet separated by an unbridgeable chasm. Her sightless eyes were stained crimson with her own blood. Number 1 glanced at the bodies, a cold laugh escaping his lips. Looking for death, Flynn broke down. Collapsing onto the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, he was consumed by regret. A moment of greed had cost his uncle and aunt their lives. The Wanderers were paralyzed by fear and anger. Watching Hugh and Anne's bodies, a chilling sense of shared fate washing over them. On Number 1's wrist terminal, the Seedling leader's face appeared on the monitoring screen. "What are you doing? Who authorized you to kill anyone?" Number 1 quickly adopted a posture of contrition. These Wanderers were withholding information. "I only wanted to establish authority. We'll leave immediately." The leader shook his head. "Too late now. Since you've already killed them, make sure it's clean." "No loose ends." Number 1 nodded, his face hardening. He gestured to his squad. The deafening roar of gunfire ripped through the forest, sending flocks of birds scattering into the sky. Dusk bled across the sky, painting the forest in hues of red. Harlan, pushing himself to the limit, finally reached the settlement just before nightfall. Even from a distance, the metallic tang of blood assaulted his nostrils. His heart sank. Too late. The once bustling settlement was eerily silent. A scene of carnage unfolded before him. Blood was everywhere, staining the earth a gruesome crimson. The ground squelched underfoot, each step leaving a bloody footprint. Harlan saw Hugh and Anne's mangled bodies, a sickening lurch in his gut. Rage, cold and sharp, ignited within him. Suddenly, a figure stirred amongst the corpses. Harlan recognized the bearded trader who had tried to cheat him. Kylo, eyes wide with lingering terror, had been knocked unconscious at the start of the massacre, but miraculously survived. Before he could even process his luck, he saw Harlan standing over him, his face like thunder. Kylo began to tremble uncontrollably. Harlan closed the distance in a few strides. Grabbing Kylo by the collar, his voice a low growl. "What happened here? Seedling did this. We didn't give you away. They just started killing. Everyone is dead. It's a massacre. For Hugh's sake, you have to avenge us." Kylo's performance was Oscar-worthy, tears and snot mingling freely. He dared not reveal the truth. Only wanting to manipulate Harlan into attacking Seedling, hoping to escape any blame himself. Chapter 017 Slaughter. Cough, cough. A weak cough broke the silence nearby. Harlan approached, finding Flynn, riddled with bullets, clinging to life by a thread. He was beyond saving. Harlan noticed the Type 73 Wasp clutched in Flynn's hand. Everything clicked into place. A complex mix of emotions washed over him. "I warned you it was dangerous. Why didn't you listen?" Flynn's trembling hand reached out. Clutching at Harlan's trouser leg, he wept, a raw, agonizing sound. "I shouldn't have been greedy. I regret it so much. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Flynn's finger trembled, pointing at Kylo. "Don't believe him. He betrayed my Uncle Hugh." He coughed again, spitting blood. "You're too far gone. I can only ease your suffering." Harlan shook his head, his hand reaching out, snapping Flynn's neck with a swift, merciful motion. "Don't listen to his lies," Kylo stammered, desperate to defend himself. Harlan stood abruptly, drawing his pistol and firing. The bullet ripped through Kylo's skull. Kylo slumped to his knees, eyes wide and vacant, lifeless. "Everyone is gone. You can join them now." Harlan's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Since discovering the settlement's massacre, a tidal wave of rage had surged within Harlan. Yet his icy rationality held it in check, like a tiger caged. The more his fury burned, the calmer he became. Harlan moved to Hugh's body, following the direction of his outstretched hand. It pointed away from the settlement, deeper into the forest, towards the tire tracks left by the Valkyrie squad, in the opposite direction from where Harlan had left. Hugh hadn't betrayed him. A sharp pain pierced Harlan's heart, like a nail driven into bone. Even at the end, Hugh hadn't given him up, a stranger he barely knew. Was it worth it? System notification. E-rank mission triggered. Vengeance mission objective. Eliminate the Valkyrie squad mission reward. 15,000 experience points. Harlan turned away from Hugh and Anne's bodies. Entering their tent, he retrieved Hugh's prized possession, the antiquated saber bayonet rifle. A flicker of dark energy seemed to ripple across its surface. Though it might have been his imagination. "You want revenge for your old partner, don't you?" Harlan's face was grim. He emptied his backpack of weapons, dismantling them along with the saber bayonet rifle, scattering parts across the ground. Using the saber bayonet rifle as a base, he began to modify and rebuild. Piece by piece, system notification, simple repair and simple enhancement modification skills reached level 10. Although the names are basic, they are core early-game mechanical skills. Max-level effects are highly effective. Harlan's expertise in basic firearms modification was effortless. Weapon, saber bayonet rifle, sniper variant quality. White base stats, attack power 66 to 69, fire rate 1.1 rounds/sec, magazine capacity 10 rounds, effective range 450 meters, output energy 37 stat bonus. Agility +2 length, 0.86 meters weight, 8.3 pounds additional effect, precision stable trajectory, minimal wind influence additional effect. Penetration modified to use sniper caliber rounds, enhanced penetration power note, it thirsts for vengeance. He counted the ammunition. Only 25 sniper rounds. All scavenged from the Night Owl squad. 4 tire tracks scarred the ground, indicating 2 vehicles, no more than 12 pursuers. Harlan slung the rifle over his shoulder and headed in the direction of the Valkyrie squad. His silhouette disappearing into the deepening shadows of the forest on foot, he couldn't outpace vehicles. Harlan wasn't trying to catch up. Hugh had deliberately pointed them in the wrong direction. When the pursuers realized they were on a false trail, they'd most likely backtrack. Harlan intended to ambush them along that inevitable return route. He could have turned and run, disappearing completely, but an inner voice, raw and insistent, demanded blood. If he didn't unleash his barely contained rage on those responsible, he knew he would forever regret it. Even without the mission, his choice would have been the same. Seedling. The word hissed through his teeth, laced with venomous intent. The forest at night was an impenetrable blackness, broken only by the distant, mournful howl of wolves. Harlan lay motionless in the undergrowth. Eyelids lowered, the saber bayonet rifle resting beside him. He'd held this position for 3 hours, patient as a hunter, waiting for prey to stumble into his trap. The growl of engines grew rapidly closer. Harlan's eyes snapped open. 4 speeding headlights pierced the darkness, entering his range. Here they come. Harlan's tone was as casual as greeting expected guests. He donned the monocular infrared night vision device scavenged from the Night Owl squad. 2 orange-red vehicle outlines materialized in his vision. Harlan chambered around, bringing the lead vehicle into his sniper scope, carefully adjusting the focus. He held his breath, aiming for a full 8 seconds before smoothly squeezing the trigger. Fire and muzzle flash erupted, the brassy sniper round leaping from the barrel, slicing through the trees, covering hundreds of meters in a heartbeat. Impacting the speeding vehicle's tire with pinpoint accuracy, pop, blowout, the lead armored vehicle slammed into a tree with a deafening crash. The vehicle behind it screeched to a halt. Number 1, dazed, stumbled out of the vehicle bellowing, "Can you even drive? Captain, tires blown. How can a run-flat tire blow?" A soldier crouched down. Voice rising in alarm. "There's a bullet lodged in it. Ambush." The word detonated in Number 1's brain. Just then, the distant gunshot echoed again. The soldier examining the tire exploded in a shower of gore right in front of Number 1. Blood and brain matter splattered across Number 1's face. Sniper. Find the enemy position. Everyone on alert. Get behind the vehicles. This was the Valkyrie squad's first real combat encounter. They fumbled through their textbook battlefield tactics, scrambling for cover. Even as they moved, the deadly gunshot cracked again. Another soldier's head detonated. Number 1 roared, "Down!" The remaining soldiers threw themselves to the ground. Silence descended, broken only by the rustling leaves. Everyone was gripped by terror. Only Number 1 managed to maintain a semblance of composure, frantically activating his wrist terminal to call for backup. The standoff dragged on. No one dared to expose themselves to the unseen sniper, the lurking demon in the darkness, waiting to reap lives. "Who is attacking us?" "Don't know. It's pitch black. They must have night vision." "What do we do now?" "Stay put, wait for reinforcements." Number 1 snarled, "Don't be fools. Do you think the enemy will just wait? There's only one of them, and we're cowering like scared ostriches with our heads in the sand. What will command think of us?" "A squad of cowards." The soldiers' faces paled. Number 1 spat. "It's just one enemy. We have vehicles, weapons, numbers. We can't win." "Right, we fight back. First, pinpoint the sniper's location." One soldier, steeling his nerves, jumped up, then immediately dropped back down, a reckless attempt to draw the sniper's fire and reveal his position. But a lethal round found him in an instant, striking his heart. A bloom of blood erupted, the force of the impact throwing him back several meters. He landed in a lifeless heap. Silencing any similar ideas, A cold dread seeped into number one's bones. Such accuracy! Who was this enemy? The sacrificed soldier hadn't died in vain. The Valkyrie squad had glimpsed a fleeting muzzle flash in the darkness, found him, 300 meters south, get in the other vehicle, ram him. Through his night vision, Harlan saw the cowering enemies simultaneously rise and sprint towards the undamaged armored vehicle. He immediately understood their plan to use the armored vehicle to close the distance. Thermal imaging showed 7 remaining targets. They were betting on the sniper's slow fire rate, willing to sacrifice 1 or 2 to get everyone inside. Harlan couldn't eliminate 7 targets instantly. He calmly fired twice more, dropping 2 more soldiers, watching as the rest piled into the armored vehicle. The engine roared to life, the vehicle lurching forward, a metal beast charging through the trees. The saber bayonet rifle couldn't penetrate the thick armor plating. He couldn't get a clean shot at the engine block from this angle. Harlan, alone, was now in a precarious position. Correct tactics, Harlan muttered. Eyes narrowed. Predictable, though. Chapter 018, You don't know how big the world is, die. Number 1 shrieked, slamming the accelerator, driving straight towards Harlan's last known position. No one noticed the tripwire stretched between 2 trees, a cluster of grenades hanging from the center. The armored vehicle plowed straight into it. The wire snapped taut, ripping the trees from the earth with a groaning tier of wood and roots. The armored vehicle jolted violently, the occupants thrown around inside. Before they could react, the grenades detonated in a deafening blast, a fireball erupting skyward. The armored vehicle's bulletproof windshield spiderwebbed with cracks. If this was an ambush, Harlan wouldn't have come unprepared. Using a thick rope and the last of his G-type fragmentation grenades, he'd set up a rudimentary vehicle trap. The instant the grenades exploded, Harlan ripped off the night vision device. In the sudden blaze of light, night vision was useless. He aimed at the armored vehicle's front windshield and opened fire. Recoil slammed into his shoulder, even his strength barely containing the rifle's kick. The saber bayonet rifle was a beast. Bang, round after round hammered into the windshield. Cracks spread rapidly, converging on the driver's side. Number 1, teeth gritted, yanked the soldier in the passenger seat in front of him as a human shield. The next instant, the windshield shattered. Bullets tore through, obliterating the sacrificial soldier's skull, showering Number 1 in gore and brain matter. A nauseating stench filling the air. Bail out, the squad scrambled, panic driving them. Number 1, disregarding range, sprayed wildly with his assault rifle, aiming blindly in Harlan's general direction. The remaining soldiers followed suit, unleashing a hail of bullets. Harlan ceased fire, dropping prone to avoid the spray. Using the moment to reload, bullets whizzed overhead. He knew they were panicked, firing blindly. Once their magazines were empty, they'd be vulnerable. Soon, the Valkyrie squad learned the price of recklessness. As their collective magazines clicked empty, the chilling crack of the sniper rifle echoed again, the harbinger of death. Round after round, precise, lethal, bang, bang, the rhythm of the shots strangely possessed a grim beauty, evoking images of cold, precise machinery. One by one, the soldiers fell, headshots ripping through them. Harlan deliberately spared Number 1, saving him for last, teammates dropping around him like flies. Number 1 roared, shaking with rage, firing wildly, his voice cracking with hysteria. "Who are you? Show yourself, coward!" His confidence shattered. This, their first mission, had turned into a catastrophic rout, destroying his inflated ego. Click, 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 Number 1's magazine ran dry again. "Show yourself," he screamed. Harlan, face a mask of cold fury, stepped into view. Number 1's eyes widened, disbelief warring with dawning horror. It can't be you, in his mind. Harlan, the escaped test subject, should be running, a hunted animal. Never in his wildest nightmares had he imagined Harlan would turn and attack his pursuers. Even if Number 1 still harbored doubts about Harlan's lab escape combat prowess, all doubts were erased. He had been wrong, terribly wrong. Zero was far stronger than he could have ever imagined. The realization ignited a white-hot jealousy in Number One's heart. I am the best, you're just a failure. Trash, old resentments and fresh hatreds surged. Number One lost all reason, drawing his pistol to attack. Harlan barely lifted the rifle. A heavy-caliber sniper round shattered Number One's right arm. Leaving it hanging by a bloody thread of skin, flesh and bone exploded outward. Number One stared, blank and lost, at his severed arm. Harlan fired again, shattering Number One's leg. Number One crashed to the ground. Harlan leisurely reloaded, then proceeded to methodically shatter Number One's remaining limbs. Number One lay broken and helpless, eyes burning with venomous hatred fixed on Harlan. Zero. The scream was hoarse, guttural, the sound of a wounded beast. Too loud. Harlan strode forward, planting a brutal kick that shattered Number One's jaw. Do you know why I saved you for last? Because I didn't want you to die quickly. Number One could only gurgle, a pathetic, strangled sound, writhing like a crushed insect, blood pumping from his mangled limbs. Just then, the wrist terminal lying beside him flickered to life. The seedling leader's holographic image materializing, his voice, calm and controlled, cut through the night. Zero enough. Harlan frowned, saying nothing. I am the leader of Seedling. The leader's voice carried the weight of unchallenged authority. Defection is a dead end. You cannot win against Seedling. No matter where you run, we will hunt you down and bring you to justice. Every second of your life will be consumed by fear, but I can offer you a path to survival. Harlan's face remained impassive. What path? Return to Seedling willingly. Confess your error. Submit to our judgment. I can guarantee you memory retention. A higher standing within the organization, no longer just a test subject. The leader's voice was measured, persuasive. He was impressed by Zero's demonstrated abilities. Eager to understand the source of his mutation, hoping it could be replicated, bolstering Seedling's forces. Number One, hearing this, his eyes blazed with incandescent fury. Why would Zero, who had slaughtered so many of their comrades, be offered better treatment? Why reward him? Harlan saw Number One's reaction, a grim amusement twisting his lips. I've killed so many of your people and you still want me? Insignificant losses. Disposable. The leader's reply was immediate, dismissive, as if the bodies littering the forest floor were inconsequential. Number One shuddered, his spirit collapsing within him. What makes you think I would ever serve you? The leader's tone shifted to one of condescending certainty. Seedling is destiny. We are engaged in a great undertaking. Serving us is your duty. What is there to hesitate about? I understand. You feel your previous treatment was unfair. Don't be petty. Greatness requires sacrifice. A little humiliation is insignificant compared to our ultimate goals. Harlan's voice remained level. I have no interest in your ideals. You murdered my friends. We are enemies. There's nothing more to discuss. The leader's voice hardened, ice creeping into his tone. If you refuse me. The world is vast, but there will be nowhere left for you to hide. I will destroy you. Harlan's voice was quiet, but utterly resolute. Seedling would never be reasoned with. Never feel remorse. The only language they understood was greater force. The leader scoffed, a sound of disbelief. Destroy Seedling? You, what are you? Compared to Seedling, you're an ant, easily crushed. Killing a few soldiers has inflated your ego. You think you alone can stand against us? A frog in a well. Utterly ignorant. Then watch me. And by the way, you have no idea how big the world truly is. Harlan shook his head, aiming the rifle at Number One's chest. Firing 3 rounds in rapid succession, sending them directly into his heart. Number One's eyes glazed over, fading into nothingness. The Valkyrie squad annihilated. The leader, his masked face unreadable, remained silent, though Harlan could sense the barely contained fury radiating from the holographic image. You will regret this. The leader stated coldly, severing the connection. System notification. You have eliminated Number One Valkyrie test subject. Reward, 900 experience points. System notification. Mission Vengeance completed. Reward, 15,000 experience points. Click-clack, click-clack. The saber bayonet rifle automatically disassembled itself. The old rifle's internal mechanisms were worn out. This battle its swan song. The SWP sniper rifle scavenged from the Night Owl squad required the sniper skill, which Harlan didn't possess. He had disassembled it for parts, modifying the saber bayonet rifle instead. Annihilating the Valkyrie squad netted him thousands of experience points. Combined with the mission reward, he had amassed over 20,000 experience. Now enemies of Seedling, Harlan knew escape wasn't enough. He needed to inflict real damage. His personal power was, admittedly, insignificant compared to Seedling, but he possessed a weapon far more potent, the vast trove of future knowledge stored within his mind. To leverage that knowledge, he needed to find allies, powerful allies, capable of standing against Seedling. The choice narrowed to the 6 nations. Star Dragon, Red Maple, Tilius, Rain, High Zia, Audrey Nar. Star Dragon was closest. Compared to Rain's ruthless efficiency, Red Maple's bureaucratic inertia, High Zia's profit-driven pragmatism, Tilius's reckless ambition, and Audrey Nar's cunning machinations, Star Dragon's internal culture was the most moderate and, crucially, their animosity towards Seedling ran deep. From every angle, Star Dragon was the best starting point. Chapter 0 $19 million bounty, A-rank mission. The Black Harrier helicopter arrived late the next morning, carrying the leader, Hela, and a cleanup crew to the site of the Valkyrie squad's massacre. The leader glanced at Number One's twisted corpse, a sound of disgust escaping from behind his mask. Worthless trash. Researchers began collecting the Valkyrie squad's bodies, laying them side by side. All dead, one confirmed. The leader, hands clasped behind his back, gazed towards the distant mountain pass, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice resonating with cold authority. In the name of Seedling, place a bounty on Zero's head on the dark web. Dead or alive, 1 million. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled crew. Seedling, a leviathan of the underworld, hadn't issued a bounty in at least 3 years. Was it necessary to make such a grand spectacle over one escaped test subject? Are you sure he warrants such attention? Zero is running scared. What harm can he possibly do to Seedling? He dared to declare war on Seedling. He will learn the true meaning of insignificance. I will crush his pathetic defiance. The leader's tone was chilling. If Zero is captured alive, I want him interrogated, experimented on whatever it takes. Uncover the source of his mutation. Even if he dies, the corpse is to be dissected and analyzed. A researcher gestured to Number One's body. What about them? The leader was about to dismiss them as waste, but a new thought sparked. How is the Super Soldier project progressing? The theoretical framework is complete. We are moving to cellular and animal testing. Human trials with minimal side effects are projected within 8 months. The leader cut him off. Skip cellular and animal testing. Proceed directly to human trials. That's highly risky. Only Valkyrie test subjects can withstand the modification process. Test subjects are valuable. Rushing the timeline will lead to unnecessary losses. The leader's voice took on an unsettling quality. Experiments create soldiers. Hatred creates true demons. He pointed at Number One's corpse. He is the perfect raw material. Hatred will drive him through the agonizing transformation. Rage will fuel his furnace. Understood. The researcher nodded. The leader turned to Hela. Resurrect him. Hela exhaled, her hands glowing with a faint gray light. The surrounding temperature seemed to plummet 10 degrees. A low, mournful wail emanated from the gray light between Hela's palms, like the cries of ghosts. Number One's body seemed to resonate with the sound. Wisps of gray mist materialized in the air, drifting towards Number One's bloodied face, seeping into his orifices as if absorbed. The leader unbuttoned his coat. Retrieving a vial of crimson liquid from his pocket, Hela's face tightened. a flicker of murderous intent crossing her eyes before she suppressed it. Aurora Resurrection Serum. Extracted from her sister's bone marrow, brewed into an ultra-potent healing elixir, the vial tipped, the serum spilling onto Number One's corpse. The red liquid instantly dispersed. Sinking into his skin through his pores, a miraculous transformation began. Number One's cold body began to warm, wounds sealed at an accelerated rate. His shattered jaw reconnected. Severed limbs sprouted flesh buds. The sound of a heartbeat grew stronger, louder. Number One's eyes snapped open, his face contorted in a mask of venomous rage, unleashing a blood-curdling roar of pure, unadulterated hatred that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. 0 System notification. Seedling Organization faction relationship activated. Seedling Organization reputation decreased by 1,000. Seedling Organization. Hatred, -1,000. Deserter System notification. A-rank mission triggered. Seeds sleep in dust mission objective. Freedom is priceless. You risked death for it and earned it as your reward. But Seedling will not tolerate your defection. They have placed a hefty bounty on your head. You will face relentless pursuit, a life of fear and unrest. Forever denied peace. This is a prison in disguise, a sky shrouded in smog. To gain true freedom, there is only one path. You know what you must do. Mission objective. This is a long-term mission. Mission rewards depend on the extent of damage you inflict on Seedling, both directly and indirectly. Current progress, 0% note. Progress is not fixed. If Seedling expands, progress may decrease. This mission can be terminated at any time. If the mission is ended with progress below 20%, it is considered a failure. Progress above 20% constitutes mission completion. Rewards will be determined by final progress. Generally, B rank and above missions involved planetary faction conflicts. The Aquamarine 1.0 main storyline revolved around the conflict between the Six Nations and Seedling. Players were divided into different factions, according to Harlan's memories. Quite a few players had chosen to join Seedling, significantly boosting their power. If he wanted maximum rewards, he would be at odds with future Seedling-aligned players. The mission objective was to directly or indirectly damage Seedling. In the original timeline, while Seedling hadn't technically won or lost, they had suffered heavy losses. Harlan realized this mission had potential competitors, other factions opposing Seedling. Their actions against Seedling wouldn't count towards his mission progress. 20% damage. Could he really cripple Seedling single-handedly? Pitiful was an understatement. Despite the daunting challenge, Harlan accepted without hesitation. He and Seedling were locked in a death struggle. There was no other choice. Looks like this is my main quest for now. Seedling was the central conflict of Aquamarine 1.0. Harlan would be stuck on Aquamarine until he grew stronger, so factional warfare was inevitable. Starsea upon character creation, the system would ask players about their preferences, preferred world types. Class archetypes. Based on the questionnaire, new players were assigned to randomly generated starter planets with different themes. The Starsea universe held countless civilizations, each planet offering a unique starting point. Ancient, magical, urban, sci-fi, every player could find a world that resonated with them. Each planet had one or more main storylines. This was part of the game's appeal. Many casual players enjoyed exploring the cosmos, experiencing diverse civilizations and planets. Aquamarine was one such starter planet. A low-tech urban setting, similar to Earth. Of course, the core of Starsea remained the vastness of space. As the game versions progressed, the overarching cosmic scale would gradually unfold. Some players, with a morbid sense of humor, would give joke answers to the system's questionnaire, expressing a preference for horror, supernatural, or haunted settings. The system, with equal dark humor, would oblige, dumping them on planets teeming with undead horrors, yet devoid of magic to combat them. These players generally faced two outcomes: re-rolling or gritting their teeth and playing on. The latter were left to their own devices. Stacy's immersion pods were incredibly realistic, barring only physical pain. The rarely read game registration disclaimer clearly stated that the company held no responsibility for any discomfort, physical or mental illness players might experience during gameplay, a classic example of corporate overreach. Harlan could have found a remote wilderness location and hidden until Seedling was weakened, but that would stagnate his growth. While safe, it was pointless, guaranteeing he'd be overtaken by other players. Following the planet's main storyline, however dangerous, would unlock a wealth of missions. The chaotic times were the perfect crucible for growth. Countless future events were vividly imprinted in his mind. Escape was never an option. Harlan spent 3 days walking, finally exiting the forest, which lay within the Star Dragon Republic's borders. Seedling was brazen indeed, establishing a base so deep within enemy territory, exploiting the darkness under the lamp principle. Emerging from the woods, Harlan found railroad tracks. He hitched a ride on a freight train bound for West Capital, Star Dragon's capital city, packed with livestock. Due to the dangerous wilderness and the constant tension between the Six Nations and Seedling, many highways connecting cities had fallen into disrepair. Railways, however, were maintained by the military for transporting supplies. Wildlife was rampant. Every city was fortified with military garrisons, checkpoints, and towering electrified fences, the first line of defense. The sight of the fences signaled the city's proximity, freeloading for 2 days. The silhouette of electrified fences finally materialized in the distance. Harlan shoved aside a few clucking hens flapping around him, exhaling deeply. His gaze fixed on the horizon. Star Dragon, West Capital, 13th Bureau, here I come, cluck-a-doodle-doo. Chapter 020. Stowaway. Star Dragon, one of the Six Nations, predominantly East Asian. Its totem, the star-forging dragon coiled in the heavens. Star Dragon held the deepest grudge against Seedling. Tracing back to the Andia War, Seedling, in secret collusion with Star Dragon's enemies, launched massive terrorist attacks within Star Dragon territory during critical junctures of the war. Over 100,000 perished. Frontline troops were forced to return to defend the homeland, almost costing Star Dragon their seat among the Six Nations. Each city was ringed by seemingly endless electrified fences. Checkpoints were the sole entry points, heavily guarded by military personnel. The train pulled into an open-air station just outside the fence. Military installations sprawled everywhere, bunkers, pillboxes, sniper nests, all manned by soldiers, their gazes fixed on the arriving train. Thousands of wanderers thronged the station plaza, queuing in long lines for inspection. Weapons, wanted status, infectious diseases, all were checked before passage through the checkpoint was granted. The Six Nations had a policy of accepting wanderers, absorbing external talent and manpower to boost their national potential. Harlan had no intention of going through inspection. Seedling would have undoubtedly issued a bounty on him. Inspection meant exposure, while his goal was to contact Star Dragon's intelligence agency, the 13th Bureau. Being surrounded by soldiers was not ideal. Fortunately, a way around the checkpoint existed. Red-named players, wanted criminals in their home nation, couldn't pass inspection. They could, however, find hidden NPCs offering passage for a price. In a quiet corner of the plaza sat an inconspicuous man, neither queuing nor leaving, easily overlooked. This was a snakehead, a smuggler, specializing in illicit city entry. Their existence was largely unknown, typically operating through word-of-mouth referrals. Just then, a slender, seemingly unassuming young man approached him. "Safe?" he asked directly. The snakehead glanced up at Harlan, confirmed him as a stranger, and feigned ignorance. "Safe? Safe what? Will this cover it?" Harlan, in no mood for games, tossed his backpack of weapons at the snakehead. The snakehead unzipped it, peeked inside and hastily zipped it back up. Holy shit, daring to stroll around with this arsenal, who was this young master? West Capitol had strict gun control, and Harlan wasn't here to cause trouble. The guns were useless to him now. More than enough, plenty enough. The snakehead, however, was curious. How did you know I was in this business? None of your concern. Discretion was the watchword in this trade. The snakehead suppressed his curiosity and stood to lead the way. Outside the station, a box truck waited. A few passengers were already inside, casting appraising glances. Harlan, unfazed, found a seat. The windows were blacked out with light-absorbing tape, obscuring the outside world. The truck would take the passengers to a hidden breach in the fence, where a bribed military officer would turn a blind eye. As long as the number of stowaways remained reasonable inside the truck, a diminutive man beside him, bored, tried to strike up a conversation with the fresh-faced Harlan. Figuring young ones were easy to manipulate. First time in West Capitol, kid. Harlan glanced at him. Yeah, haven't caught your name. Major, yours. Harlan, Major, playing the seasoned veteran, drawled, since it's your first time, little Han, let me give you the lowdown on West Capitol. It's divided into 8 districts. District 1 is the political heart, bigwig territory, untouchable. The other 7 all have their own flavor, secretly controlled by underworld figures. Word of advice, don't cross the Grey people. You'll be dead before you know it. Harlan inwardly scoffed. The Grey underworld, a chain of illicit profits built on drugs, prostitution, smuggling, and arms dealing. Every city had its criminal element, but compared to official power, they were just gnats. Commoners, however, instinctively feared the visible menace of underworld figures, while dismissing the official powers as distant and benign. They understood that officials wouldn't directly harm them. While the Grey people were unpredictable, human nature, really, like seeing armed guards escorting a money truck, few would be scared, but a menacing, ununiformed thug with a gun, most would run a mile. Major was preaching to the choir. Harlan played along, amused. The military just lets them get away with it. Heh, what can the military do? Invade the districts? Major scoffed, clearly admiring the underworld. Play acting for effect, he bragged. My cousin's a lieutenant under a big boss. Going places. I'm here to join him, help out, you know. Impressive, Harlan said dryly. Encouraged by the apparent respect, Major puffed up his chest. Damn right, my cousin's someone in West Capitol. Heard of Yellow Leopard? Nah, you're new here. You coming to see family? Harlan fabricated a story. No, looking for work, settle down. Major's eyes lit up. An idea sparked. If he could recruit a young buck for his cousin, it'd earn him brownie points. He puffed out his chest. How about working for me? Big brother here will guarantee you a bright future. Harlan politely declined. Major, in his self-importance, interpreted it as youthful arrogance. He sneered. Let me tell you what life's like for wanderers in the city. Slums, moldy food. Don't be fooled by the Six Nations' flowery words about accepting wanderers. Just lip service. They don't give a damn about you. A nobody like you. What future do you have? Better to follow me. Can't promise riches, but at least you won't starve. No thanks, Harlan repeated. Major, convinced Harlan was ungrateful and stupid, huffed, suit yourself. See if you don't regret it. You'll be begging me for a job soon enough. Harlan closed his eyes, ending the conversation. Major, feeling snubbed, glared at Harlan, then turned away. The truck stopped far from the train station. Outside a section of fence marked with hazard signs, it seemed to be a military ordnance transport gate. A uniformed officer waited behind the gate. The snakehead passed a wad of cash through the fence. The officer smiled, satisfied, and opened the gate, waving Harlan and the other stowaways through. Follow the officer. He'll take you to the outskirts. No checks, no questions, the snakehead said. The officer, silent, led them past military installations out of the checkpoint zone. Finally, West Capitol's skyscrapers shimmered in the distance. Bathed in sunlight, the stowaways scattered, melting into the city. Major shot Harlan a final glare before stomping off. Harlan walked down the street. Clothes ragged, drawing disgusted stares. Pedestrians recoiled, giving him a wide berth. 10 days trekking through the wilderness, days on a livestock train. His aroma was, to put it mildly, pungent. Penniless, every step was a struggle. Thirsty, fountain water was the only option. His most valuable possession was probably his 7-day worn underwear. Minor inconveniences, all of them. 30 minutes later, Harlan emerged from a department store, transformed. Clean white shirt, black trousers, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Smoke curling into the air, system notification, skill pickpocketing LV, 1 unlocked pickpocketing, increases success rate of theft, real-world skills often translated into game skills. Someone with military experience might automatically gain basic combat and basic shooting. Skill sets were always useful. In his past life, to combat the petty thieves plaguing his neighborhood. He'd taught himself pickpocketing, for anti-theft purposes naturally. Yes, that's the ticket, thief, no evidence, watch out for defamation lawsuits. Han the technician was a law-abiding, patriotic citizen, never scored below 80 on middle and high school civics exams, annual honor roll, scholarship recipient. Practically a party member in waiting, the paragon of virtue, the embodiment of righteous fury, the epitome of gentlemanly conduct, stealing, never peeking. Unthinkable. As for the borrowed wallet, dire straits, extenuating circumstances, civics class taught situational ethics right, understandable, excusable.